Hello, everybody, and welcome to another GoDaddy Pro event. We're so glad to have Naisha Green with us today. Naisha, would you say a kind hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
We're working through a slight technical lag, and hopefully it won't be too bad, but thank you for joining with us.
Mhm.
Naisha joins us as the editorial director for Master WP, and herself is a WordPress engineer and mentors others in the same regard. So we will be talking today all things learning WordPress. You'll know, for those of you that are with us, that learn WordPress is near and dear to my heart. I also am a former bootcamp teacher and help make the content that goes out onto learn.wordpress.org. So having Naisha with us to tell us about her current experience as it relates to mentoring others and helping them grow and understand WordPress is super important. So welcome, Naisha.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you today.
Absolutely. And our lag just went away. So we're
Oh,
good.
thank you. This is
We are
great.
good. Yeah.
Maybe
Lag
it was the earthquake.
It
It was the
probably
earthquake.
was. So there was a very small earthquake, but an earthquake just happened for Naisha right before we went live. So South Carolina.
Yes.
Um, Everybody that's joining in with us, leave a quick message over in the chat area. You can at any time ask questions, the chat sidebar. If you're joining us on the actual event page at events.godaddy.com, I'll be monitoring the questions that come in there, as will some of my teammates. You can always feel free to drop a question there as we're going, and I'll try and catch it if it's on topic. We'll certainly end today with an open Q&A time as well. So questions, absolutely welcome. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like now, Naisha?
Well, my day to day as an editorial director is writing one, which is one thing I really love. So I'm very happy I could get a job in tech, but also one that lets me write. I love to write. I've always loved to write. I'm writing. I'm coming up with ideas for what we can write about, talk about. I'm editing for our guest writers, our writers on the team. We're going through WordPress news, updates, anything we think that's relevant to the community that'll make it better. And we're just sorting through a lot of information, writing, and just sitting back and waiting to see how it's received, and then going at it again the next day.
No, that's fantastic. So
Mm-hmm.
I met you through that context, and as your
Mm-hmm.
employers took on Master WP, I think that's probably
Mm-hmm.
when I first encountered you and some of the work that your group is writing and doing. So good
Mm-hmm.
job for all of that. Can you tell
Thank
us,
you.
before getting to this point, what was your own personal learning journey? What did that look like?
So I always wanted to code, and I would learn like on and off again through freecodecamp.org, which is
Mhm.
great. I tell my mentees, even though most of them are doing the 100 Dev program,
Mm,
um, that Free Code Camp is a good way to supplement their learning because it
no.
goes slowly. It gives you hints. It actually like teaches you why you're doing it. It's just not like, hey, make this, do this. It's like, this is why you should do this, and this is how you can apply it to your work. So I was using Free Code Camp, and then we have a technical college here, Midlands Technical College. They had a program called Tech Hire.
Mm,
It's no longer around, but it was a technical program that taught you code, paid for your books, your classes, and gave you a 3,000. It was like worth $3,000 worth of money to get an internship.
okay.
That to me was, it was like the key between getting a job and not, because you can learn on your own how to code, but
Yeah.
getting that experience, how do you get that experience? It's hard to get entry level. A lot of places that we've even talked about it, they want more than entry level. So how do you get that first experience to get in there, to become a software developer, a software engineer? And with Tech Hire, I was able to get an internship for my mentor Shambi Broom, and she's a WordPress developer. Not only that, she teaches girls as young as 8, well, girls and boys as young as 8 how to code. So I got to learn WordPress development from someone who's a teacher, who's kind, who's passionate about the community, and who just, loved it. And that's how I learned how to code and positioned into WordPress,
Okay.
knowing PHP and Bootstrap. and a couple other languages. She was like, I think you'd be perfect for WordPress. And I was like,
Yeah.
the blog? She was like, no, no, no. We do a lot with it. We don't
Yeah.
just blog. We do
Right.
blog, but that's not it. And she
Right.
opened my eyes to WordPress development, and I've never looked back. It's been a wonderful journey.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, my own journey was a little different. I did have one class in college that was about programming, and it was in a computer lab near sunset in 1999 when the projectors were rather dim to begin with. So we had the sun setting, the room with all the light, and the only one that had a computer in the room was the teacher. And I was about the only female in the room, and we had paper and pencil.
Mm,
And so that was my entry into coding. And so when I hear that we're getting kids involved, that we're specifically also working with youth, oh, that is my home turf. That is what I love to do for sure.
mm,
That's really, really exciting. There is also a program, just as a quick heads up for folks, there's a program for within the WordPress community at word camps. We've had kids camps in the past. I believe now that will be called a youth camp. But basically 13 and up can go into a separate track that is all about learning WordPress that is aimed at that group. My teammate Sandy is the point of contact for those organizations. So Sandy Edwards. So we have a whole program ready to go also, and we've got some good resources to share about learning WordPress. So why did your mentor direct you into WordPress and not just for blogging? Like what got your mentor excited about
mm.
WordPress to begin with? And then how did that kind of pull in all of the other languages that you've learned?
Well, just with her story and how it relates to me, it was very, very inspiring. When she finished coding, learning how to code, and she was looking for her first job, she couldn't get it. And she hasn't only lived here, she's lived in different places. But just speaking from my view of our local tech scene, it's mostly white male dominated. And when we had our internships, it seemed like they wanted to change. But when those internships went away, the money, a lot of these companies stopped those internships. They just didn't want to help. So when she was trying to get into code, she could not get a job. And she faced a lot of sexism as a woman, as a mother. Why do you want to code? Why do you want to do this? But WordPress, the community and the technology made it so she didn't have to go into those hostile environments. She was able to utilize WordPress and turn it into her own business. And that's what she has to this day, her own business. That's where I trained and learned, and she let me come on. She develops websites for different organizations around South Carolina, and it's wonderful. And it's just such an inspiring story for me to come from non-tech, from some pretty racist and pretty sexist industries in South Carolina, to know that I could come into this community and I don't have to put up with that. I can be my own person. I can be my own boss.
Yeah.
That to me, I was like, yeah, why not WordPress? That's what I've been looking for my whole life. So
Mm,
that's what she sold me. She told me, and I said, you know what? That sounds great. Sign me up.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, when we're at close to 43% of the internet, the job opportunities
Yes.
certainly are open when you've got that coding background,
Hmm.
but also then you're familiar with what's powering so much of the internet. So I love that.
Hmm.
You mentioned a couple of obstacles that you faced with between racism and sexism.
Hmm.
Were there any other obstacles like one of the things, and I think I might have heard you actually say this on a different interview recently, the idea of people when
Hmm.
they don't know what they don't know, they want to learn, but basically it's to that effect like, what were the barriers to entry for you that you experienced as you were learning coding and WordPress both? Um, and what difference are you making with that for others?
So there were so many things going on. For one, I was in insurance. When I graduated college, I worked in insurance. I did everything in insurance. So
Mm,
to this day, if you ask me an insurance question, I probably know. I was an admin.
yeah.
I sold it. I was like a manager, and it was one of the worst things I had ever done. I made really good money
Mm.
and I did not care. And so right before I started to code, I had a job. I had a position at a place that was, I'm from South Carolina. It was the most racist and most racism and most sexism I ever faced in my life. And I grew up here.
Mm.
And it wasn't just that industry made it so that that person who perpetuated all that stuff could thrive. And I said I would not be a part of it any longer. And I said the next industry I went through, I wouldn't, if I had the power, I wouldn't let it thrive. I wouldn't let it start.
Mm.
So that was one thing. I was, people were like, well, you say that, but you're going into tech. Do you know what the tech field is? And I was like, yeah, but I'll have a little bit more leeway in tech, I thought. And I do,
Mm.
but that's what I thought at the time. So that was one thing, just going into it like, you're a black woman, you're from the South, some of these people have been coding longer than you. They're gonna tell you off of that too. So that's what you deal with.
Yeah.
I had family issues going on while I was learning. Right before I started learning, I lost my oldest sister. Um, 6 months into me learning, I lost my oldest brother.
Mm.
And so my family life was very chaotic.
Mhm.
And I was still learning how to code throughout all that. And it was tough and it was a lot. And, I wasn't working because I wasn't going back to insurance. So I luckily had a partner who helped support me.
Mm.
I had part-time or temporary jobs I could pick up. So I had all types of things flying at me. But what I did is, one, I don't forget that. I don't forget what I went through to get here.
Yeah.
And when I talk to my mentees, especially this week, I feel like this week was just rough for everybody. Um, I don't just talk to them about tech. When they first came to me, they thought they were getting a 15-minute coffee chat. No, I'm with you until you get your first job. One,
Mm.
two, I can't. I talk a lot. We can't talk for 15 minutes. Come on, 30 minutes an hour. Give it to me. Come on, let's go. And then we just don't talk about code. We talk about, I'm like, how's your life? How's your family doing? They're
Yeah.
comfortable. Most of them are comfortable enough to come to me to say, like, I didn't have a good week. My pet is sick. Or I didn't have a good week. My daughter, she's having trouble at school. And we talk about it. So my journey taught me not to take that human aspect out of
Mm.
learning or getting
Yeah.
into tech, because these people could be the best coders on earth, but it's something outside of that messing them up and keeping them out of tech. So I make
Yeah.
sure I let them know they're not alone first and foremost, and then I give them a shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that community
Hmm.
aspect of the learning journey, like you're establishing community
Hmm.
norms inside of that mentorship
Yes.
program. So I think that builds some depth of understanding that perhaps just straight up instruction doesn't always give. Because there's lots of
Yeah.
resources for that. So you've
Yeah.
mentioned Free Code Camp. Can you tell me,
Hmm.
are you familiar with learning styles, and do you know what your learning style is? Like, how do you learn best?
I am a visual learner.
Mm.
And that was a big issue when I first started learning, because they were like, all right, look at this book and it'll teach you everything. And I was like, "Okay, I don't know." But luckily, I was able to, YouTube was the best educational platform I could find. So YouTube was actually how I learned more specific WordPress development, because
Okay.
it's always nice to have someone you can look at and hear them talking about it. So I'm definitely a visual learner. I
Yeah.
hope that was, yeah, answered.
Yeah. So when, let me think about this. When you were working with your mentor, was your mentor
Hmm.
suggesting the videos, or did you say, "Oh, I watched this video. Now I need to ask the mentor maybe a couple of questions"? Like, what part of the learning journey overlaps with having a mentor in your life, I guess is the next question.
Anytime I needed, like I had a question, she didn't mind like hopping on.
Mm.
Like if we couldn't meet together, which we
Yeah.
met together a lot. And she also, this is kind of sidetrack, but she also opened me up to volunteering. That was my first
Mm.
mentoring, helping with the kids she teaches, which
Yeah.
was great. So we would meet in face to face a lot, and I would stress to her how important that was to me. So she would
Yeah.
continue to make it happen. But if we couldn't, we would always jump on video. And this is pre-COVID, so Zoom wasn't as popular. I think we used
Mhm.
Skype, but we would jump on video, that and FaceTime.
Yeah, where would we be the last 2 years without some Zoom? Um,
Oh yeah.
so so how does mentorship work for you? Like when you are mentoring others, one, how do people find a mentor? Two, what does your mentorship program look like? Like, can people just contact you 24/7, or do you set some guidelines? Do you organize this like in a Slack or something else? How do you possibly handle and tell people how many people you're mentoring usually?
I'm mentoring around 40 people right now. I know it's a lot, but we have a really good system, which is great because I was a person, I was always very unorganized. I'm not the most organized person now, but I have a really good memory.
Okay.
Hence why I'm learning 3 languages right now. But I would keep it all in my head. But as things grew and I got more people, I was like, okay, I need a schedule, I need a list, I need, some organization for this. So I didn't just decide one day to mentor. When people started coming to me, I actually thought I was too young in the tech scene to do it.
Mm,
But my mentors were like, they don't just want to ask you like JavaScript help. They want to know how you did this. They want to know
yeah,
how you slept, how you ate, how you got your first job, how you learned. So I
right.
was like, oh yeah, I can definitely talk about that. So first it was word of mouth. My mentors would send people to me. My former professor, who is now the director of our tech program, the tech program at Midlands Tech, he sends people to me. So I would get people word of mouth.
Okay.
Then on Twitter, people would start coming to me. I got a lot of 100 devs. One would say, "Oh my God, I just talked to this girl Naisha, this woman Naisha. She was amazing." And then like I would get like 10 of them like, "Can you talk to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's talk." So it got to a point where I was just getting people from people, and yeah, they could contact me and set up a time, but I have very strict guidelines. I tell them to message me whenever they want, even if it's in the middle of the night. They can because my phone is on silent. I will not see
Mhm.
it. But Fridays and Mondays, I don't do any type of mentorship because I'm burnt. I'm like still, my brain is dazed from the weekend. And by Friday, I'm so tired. So I block those days off the weekend too. Saturday and Sunday, I do none of it. So I have 4 days
Mhm.
out the week where I'm not doing any mentor work. That gives me time to rest and recharge. Tuesday through Wednesday, that's when we're talking. They can text me. That's when we can set up Zooms. Um, so I just make myself available at a certain time. And we're at the point now, like it can be word of mouth, it can be Twitter. Once I get my website up and going, I want to have a forum where anybody can just contact me off of there as well. So I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's great. So I love that you're setting boundaries and that people are finding you.
Hmm.
You mentioned that you have had a mentor and now you are mentoring others.
Hmm.
At some point in the
Hmm.
process, are those that you are mentoring starting to also be mentors? Have you seen any of that trend come up?
Yes, two of mine. One, she just got her first full-time job. Another woman in tech. I was so excited. She people have been approaching her, and she said the same thing as me. She was like, "Well, I just got the job. I don't know." I was like, "Talk to them about your journey." I was like, "You were just there. You probably have a better insight on it than a lot of other people. You were just there. Let them know that it's temporary, and one day they'll be where you are,
Mhm.
and soon." She didn't think she would get a job that soon. And then I have a guy. He's been everywhere. One of my mentees I interviewed because he went to Render ATL, and he's going all over the place, and people are coming to him for advice, and he's just so happy. And yes, I'm starting to see it, and it's terrifying at first. They will tell you that too, but it's very rewarding, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah, yeah. So, you mentioned a couple of things that you began learning. Are
Hmm.
there things that you're still learning, like JavaScript feels endless, let's face it. What we can learn in JavaScript
Oh
and
yeah,
or how it relates to WordPress and maybe React can feel a little bit endless. Are there things that you are still
React.
learning, and how do you continue developing your developer skills?
So I do a lot more writing at work than coding
Mhm,
right now, but I still get to code and help out with projects. I have side projects outside of work that I'm working on.
mhm.
I'm continuing to learn, like you said, JavaScript. My PHP, I want to get it more advanced for work. People complain about that, but
Yeah.
I'm continuing to learn how to get my WordPress, get my PHP like specifically fitted for WordPress. So I'm doing like a family tree project in my part time. I'm building my
That's
own
awesome.
website for myself so people can contact me and learn more about me. I do like if people need like website upkeep for free, I never charge anybody for anything. So in the community, like churches or anything like that, they
Yeah.
need anything, not just churches, but anybody, any small business. It's been mostly
Yeah.
churches though. It's like older people in my community are like, hey, can you help us out? So I'm like, yeah, of course. So anything like that to keep my skills sharp, because I love technical writing, but at the end of the day, I love coding and I don't want to lose that. I'm
Yeah.
also I React is okay. I'm learning Python right now. I love
Do
Python,
it.
but
Do
React is
it.
okay. I don't want the React developers to get mad at me. I love
Yeah.
React.
There's so many languages. Like I am
Hmm.
proficient up to a point with all of what goes into
Hmm.
WordPress and some of the build tools. But I feel like there's that much more constantly to learn. And so making that point, I like that you say that what you're working on and learning right now, that there's always some piece of that you're still touching the code and continuing your skills,
Hmm.
whatever language or direction that takes you in. I think it's going to keep you sharp for others for sure.
I
So
hope so.
um, do you advise others to approach things any differently than the way that you got into this? Or do you kind of advise them to pick the same path that you did?
I never tell anybody to take the same path that I did. I think most of the things I tell people not to do at this point. I It's a lot of things how I learned I do not do and I do not recommend. But I also was in a different position. I did not have a job. A lot of the people I'm mentoring, not only I don't have children either. They have
Mhm.
jobs and families. So, I was coding when I was earning like a full-time job. I was coding sometimes 8 hours a day. I would never tell anybody to do that. It's even if they do have the time that I have. That was that was tiring. Just to learn and to keep relearning. I would never tell them to try to learn so many things at once. I tell them, please stick with one thing.
Yeah.
8 hours. I had nothing but time. I was a workaholic. I was a workaholic. I'm doing better now. I would code 8 hours a day, like a
Mhm.
full-time job, because I told myself, you don't have a job. You should be just doing all you can to do this. I don't do that. I tell people not to do that. You'll burn out.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't burn out. You'll burn out.
Yep. So I mentioned that I am also a former boot camp instructor. When I was teaching, it was the first year of COVID. And my students were, the high school students were paid to learn to use WordPress, and they presented for WordCamp Philly.
Mhm.
The adults that I was teaching in the next two cohorts were getting into this program because they were unemployed, underserved, underrepresented, and we were using CARES Act relief money for job retraining to get people back into the job market. So in that coding bootcamp, a heavy, heavy emphasis was on re-entering the job market. And that's true for a lot of coding bootcamp type of programs. And in that process, they would learn the languages and how to use WordPress and how to develop for it and all of that. There's a big push around interview prep, resume prep, and also projects to have in your portfolio to show during that interview process. Is that a journey that you went through similarly? Like, did you have a lot of coding projects before you started applying, or how did you bridge that like learning mode to get the job?
So we had my program at Tech Hire. It wasn't a boot camp, but then it was structured
Mm,
like one. So we did have projects that we did. We also had resume help too. They were very awesome people, by the way. If you had anything going on, like you couldn't come to class because you needed a babysitter, they had daycare arrangements and things like that. It was a
amazing.
wonderful system. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they gave us projects. Talking to my professor, my former professor now, he's awesome. He would always tell us like we would say, well, is this enough to get a job? Can I just use this? And he would just say, you want me to tell you what I should say, or should I tell you the truth? And we're like, we want to hear the truth. Do more projects. And so I
Yeah.
went to YouTube. That was my source of everything. And I would look on there to see what I should be building. And if I wanted to get into WordPress, what do I need to know? What systems do I need to work with? And
Mm,
then having my mentor, again, mentors are important. Her letting me do work that I would ultimately be doing, building sites, working
yeah.
on sites, updating sites, doing things like that, and then allow me to put those on my portfolio as well because it was work. Those were the tools and the projects that actually helped me get into the workforce, because they saw that I could do the work. I wasn't doing work like WordPress. I was doing WordPress.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. I know we emphasized for a lot of the other languages, when folks were learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, a lot of that was just in a GitHub repo, and they would
Yeah.
spend some time getting their GitHub profiles looking really snazzy so people could navigate their way through to the repos and all of that.
Hmm.
But with WordPress, what makes it interesting then is that, let's say you build out your own plugin or theme or something like that. Maybe you want to keep the code like over in GitHub and have a working demo of that now on an actual site too. So that was always kind of
Hmm.
interesting to navigate through. Do you suggest any specific types of projects, or can you think of the ones that you built? Like, are there ones that you recommend that your mentees are building and creating too?
I always tell them to build, first of all, something fun, something,
Mm,
build something you're gonna have fun with, because you may say, "Hey, I want to be a WordPress developer. I'm just gonna design a site," and you might
yeah.
hate that, but you're like, "I don't care. I want to keep doing that." I always tell them, even though I'm trying to convince them to get into WordPress, I'm like, build something fun. My first fun project that I ever built was a weather app, and it still works to this day. I'm so impressed with myself. But I built a weather app, and then it showcased my JavaScript
Yeah.
skills, my front end skills,
Mhm.
and it was handy too. Like, my family, who's always been super supportive, I taught them how to like save it to their phones.
Mm.
So like my mom, for a little, she's not technologically savvy. She would have my weather app and her
Yeah.
weather app, and she was like, "Could you just show me the regular weather app?" So I told them to build something fun. I definitely think something useful would be great. When I suggested that to one of my mentees, she built a skate park app where you
Oh,
can
that's
find
awesome.
local skate parks near
Yeah.
her, because she loved to skate. And so I say, take what you're interested in, and then you turn that into a project that's relevant to what you want to work in. Because if you're designing websites, that still showed off your front end skills. If you want to do more back end, I always recommend that they play a little bit more like with data.
Yeah.
I love back end work. So I get a sense of what they like. We like food. Let's build a recipe book online, or like a like, I forgot, what do you call it when you're weighing, measurement calculator. I
Oh,
had
yeah.
one that we made one of those with one of my mentees, who really like to cook and bake. So something functional, but something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. That's things that you feel will amuse yourself while you're building it, but also that you
Hmm.
can then explain, because during interviews, they will ask. That's for sure. They will
Yes.
ask. um, I need to do some more side projects while I'm thinking about this, just in an ongoing way as I'm learning more about different languages and things. That idea of always having some little projects along the way is pretty good. Um, so did you put a lot of work into both your GitHub profile and or your WordPress.org profiles? Have you intentionally done
I did not.
things to
Mm-mm.
work on them? Nope. So it's not required.
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I did not. Well, with GitHub, yes, for a little while I did. I would do my projects only on GitHub to get the hang of it.
Mhm.
Um, when I started working and I did not need it anymore, I kind of stopped. But then I got my current position where we were working more with GitHub again, and then we switched to Bitbucket.
Okay.
So I've used GitHub like
Interesting.
stuff, yeah, but not
Yeah.
GitHub.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know since the common ground of coming from coding boot camps, a lot of folks will pour into
Mm.
their profiles. And one of the trends that I saw,
Yes.
so what I did with my boot camp students is that we would go to WordPress plugins and themes companies or agencies even, and take a look at their job
Mm-hmm.
listings on a regular basis and see what they're hiring for.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I went to one of the plugin companies, a lot of the plugin companies say, "What's your .org profile?" Partially, they're looking to see that you haven't been the person that just rants off in the forums, and that maybe you've right, there's that. People are unaware, but when you make a .org, when you make a profile for WordPress.org, it shows every activity you do with that profile across the
Mm-hmm.
entire system. So sometimes people like to see that folks. One of the nice entry things is that sometimes they'll hire for advanced support, where you need to know a little bit of code
Mm-hmm.
to do the work.
Yeah.
So you're maybe not quite ready for junior dev work, but you know almost that much. Um,
Hmm.
Answering for questions anywhere in the WordPress.org support forums is one of the ways that people can start building up a little bit that's there. Not to
That's
say that
awesome.
it's required by any means as we're learning. And some companies honestly never look at that, but some do. And for those that do, it might be good to just set aside, like, make a goal, one question a week. Go rate and review something across .org to start building that up a little
Hmm.
bit. Or I will always say contribute, contribute, contribute for those that can, and don't feel bad if you can't. There's both of those sides. Um, so what inspires you to keep going? What helps you have that like I want to learn something more, or I want to keep helping? Like what's the real drive behind that for you?
For Are you asking about like coding, using WordPress, or mentoring, or all
Both,
of it?
all of it, all of it.
All of it. Coding to me is just, it's honestly fun. I've never had a job where I could make something and then see the results of it.
Yeah.
So I think being able to see the results of my work is what keeps me going. And also, websites help people. The whole point of my family website was because Ancestry was so hard to use and navigate for my older family members. I said, what if I made a website where they can just click and click and click? And it's not ready yet, but I let them play around with it just to make sure the accessibility was good. Um, and it's working out well. So I'm like, dude, we're helping people. Helping people motivates me, not for money, not for anything like that. And I hate when people are cliched and say that. But if you come to me and you walk away and you feel good, I feel good. It's contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love mentoring. Like, we've all needed somebody at some point in our life, no matter how high we have been or how low we have been. And sometimes they will tell me, just talking to me makes me feel better. Just talking makes me feel better. They are
Mm-hmm.
so funny. So just getting that joy,
Yeah.
feeling good, knowing that I'm helping others, knowing that I'm not wasting my time, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's for sure. I love that you're not wasting your time.
Hmm.
There's something in that
I don't
process.
believe you can waste your time. Yeah.
No, the work that you're doing, you're passionate about it, and the people that you're working with are equally passionate to learn it. Um, I still field
Yes.
questions from students that I had like 10 years ago. Probably always will.
Hmm.
There's something about that that just kind of keeps us like really inspired or going with what we're doing. So that's really good.
Hmm.
Before we open it up for some other audience questions, I had one come in that Maya asks, when you are recharging between Friday through Monday, what helps you most to recharge?
Naps. I love a nap. People laugh. I'm like, y'all don't take naps? I love naps. I nap Tuesday through Thursday as well. But sleep happens.
Yeah.
Doing stuff that I want to do. Like I block those days off. So if I don't want to do anything, I want to lay in the bed and watch K drama. I
Yeah.
do it. I want to eat at a new restaurant. I do it. Yeah, love naps. If I want to play video games, making sure work is not your life. That's why I tell people would never do what I did when I was getting on this journey, because I obsessed over it and I almost made it my
Mm,
life. Luckily, I had my mentors and I had my husband. They were like, let's do something else. So making sure there's a clear line between tech in my
mhm,
life, never losing focus of that. That's how I recharge. I feel, it's still Mondays. Nobody feels good on a Monday. But I feel great. I feel the best on a Monday now than I did when I was younger, when I was first working, starting full time work out of college, when I used to work part time as a teenager. I feel
mm.
more happy now on a Monday. So doing what I love to do on the
Yeah,
weekends and taking
that's
breaks. That's how I
yeah,
recharge.
yeah, that's good. I tend to struggle to like on my weekends to really unplug. Especially
Gotcha.
this past weekend, I was at Work Camp Montclair, and so my whole weekend was WordPress, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. It's fun to be around those that know more, challenge me to keep learning, and it's also really fun to help get other people unblocked. to help them in their process too. So both ends of the spectrum, I think, are really, really valuable. Maya says, I love naps too. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Same.
Oh
It
yeah.
takes me a couple of days, Maya, to like a couple days off work before I feel like I could just go nap whenever. So there's that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I definitely feel that. All right, so maybe a question, not a big curveball, but a slight curveball of a question. When you were learning WordPress, I know that probably would have been before we had the site editor, full site editing. Did in your learning journey at different points, where was WordPress? Like, tell me, was Gutenberg already out as you began learning WordPress? If you all have questions, start dropping them in the chat for us too.
Gutenberg came out a little bit after.
Okay.
And so it's like, I understand too, like when people are like, there are too many changes happening. I don't like this. I don't like full site editing. I don't like this and that.
Yep.
I feel like every time something new happens, first, I feel like it happens fast for me because I feel like it's been years and I feel like I just joined WordPress like yesterday sometimes, but it's like, I will take all the help I can get. So I'm like, if this is going to make life easier, I'll jump into it. But I know sometimes we get into a groove where we like things a certain way. That was frustrating when I was first learning WordPress. Like,
Yeah.
but it's not specific to WordPress. When you're first learning tech and code, it's changing and like you have to keep up with it. And so when Gutenberg first came out, I was like, what is this? I just figured out the whole thing. But it's when you learn in tech that you have to be adaptable to this, it's fine. But I definitely was surprised. I was like, this is moving. And then people would tell me like, WordPress doesn't move, it doesn't change. And I'm like, it's changing to me. Maybe you need my eyes to look at it. So
somehow simultaneously things take forever to happen, and it's happening all together all at once right now. So I don't know how we're doing both of
yes.
those things. What challenges does that put on you as a developer? Like, there's that I want to see the change happen and it's taking forever, but then there's also the flip of, oh my gosh, I better catch up, right? And so how do you navigate that?
I take things one thing at a time. Like if you just hop into like WordPress, like some people are like, I'm gonna hop into WordPress. And like some of my mentees, and they hop in, they're like, nice, I don't know what's going on. Like when he started learning in 5.0 and then it went to 6.0 and he was like, Nisha, everything changed. Oh my God, we gotta jump on a call. SOS. Like I was like, dude, it's okay. It's okay. And then as we said and we talked about it, he was like, oh, okay, I get it now. It looks similar. I was like, yeah. So I take one thing at a time. I stress that to people. Oh my goodness. If you're not aware of what's going on, it can seem overwhelming. It can seem like it's too many changes. It can seem like it's just too much.
Yeah.
Take one thing at a time. Learn one thing. You don't have to know everything. And I think I have to tell myself that too sometimes. My tech director, Brian Cords, is like so smart. And like the way he explains things, I told him the other day, you're the only person I can come to if it's something in WordPress I don't understand. Because he makes you feel like you knew this your whole life. So also getting someone who's really good at explaining things like
Yeah.
Brian, that also helps a lot.
Yeah. So I have a similar part in my learning journey where the help of some skilled developer friends made all the difference in the world. Being able to ask the questions, not get all the feelings in the way, because especially ladies, I think in tech, and I would also venture to guess people of color in tech find like, oh gosh, everyone but me knows the answer to this thing. And here I am struggling for hours to find the semicolon or whatever it is. Like, what? We all have
Yes,
those things. We
it's
all have those things. Where's that semicolon?
it's very intimidating sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, why won't this work? You didn't save it. Thanks, guys. You're great. You guys are great. You folks are great. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I love it. I'm glad to have the help. I love it.
Yep, for sure. Audience members that are with us over on the events.gotoday.com platform, if you've got some more questions that are in there, please let us know. Jennifer Davis asks, how will Gutenberg affect developers using Understrap to build client sites?
That is a great question. That is a better question for Rob, my boss, or Brian, our technology director. I'm sorry, guys. I cannot answer that.
That is totally okay. So I think also, so I am a little familiar with Understrap. Haven't had a whole lot of practice with that one in particular. But when I look at other systems and tools out there as well, it takes a little bit of time for a method to come forward. Like one of the courses that I used to take my students through in our boot camp, they would watch the tutorial videos at night as homework, come to class the next day, and they would do some extra extensions on top of that. So we were using wprig.io to build themes, which was a different way than using the underscores framework to do this. And it's not totally block ready yet. And so this is not the same issue, but kind of similar, where it's not entirely block ready yet. And it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, but it was one method of building something. It still worked with the block editor, but it was about building the theme in a way that made me not the same thing as FSE. So that site was wprig.io, and it's a free course from LinkedIn Learning that is available, as well as an open source project. So I would guess that in the not too distant future, we'll just defer, obviously, to Naisha's team to help answer that one. Yeah, we'll defer to them to answer what the roadmap looks like for that support and integration. But there's that. John's asking Brian's last name. Coords.
I put it in the chat for you as well.
Yeah.
And check him out on Twitter. I think it's Brian Coords on Twitter. Brian is very, very smart. And like I said, the way he explains things, especially things in the WordPress community, he simplifies them so much for me, and I love it. And he just has an interesting view, and he has a different point of view on things in the way he combines things together. He's such a great writer as well. It's like really, really great. And he's funny too. So it's a fun ride if you follow Brian.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Teron.
It's been really good to get to know a lot of the Master WP and or extended projects areas as well. There's quite a few entities that are kind of all working together. So it's been fun to see the momentum growing for all of those different brands throughout Twitter. Any other questions, audience? Checking. I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of let folks know about this one related to this. If folks would like more training or resources, Naisha, first, where would you recommend that they go to get more training or resources if they are looking for something to learn on their own time first? Where would you send them?
Learn WordPress is really awesome. And there's step-by-step. If you need to know anything about WordPress, it's step-by-step on why and where. They're really good. If you're a visual learner like me, I really say go to YouTube. Free Code Camp is dipping a little bit more into WordPress. They have learning tricks that for people who don't really want to code, you don't have to code. They have learning tricks for people who want to code and build websites like me. And then they have people who want to just completely build themes from scratch. Go to YouTube. I also wrote an article. I should have linked it.
Yeah.
It's about just 3 tutorials. They're kind of older now, but they're 3 tutorials from basic to advanced. If you want to just do no code, if you want to code, and if you want to build a theme, YouTube is your best bet right now. And we at Master WP are cooking up a WordPress boot camp for the future. So in the future, we hope to have a WordPress boot camp that we can offer to people so they can have that guidance and have that specific roadmap. So it's not as hard to find and put together resources in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So I will draw attention to one resource. So the team behind learn.wordpress.org is the make.wordpress.org/training team. And that team is growing rapidly, which I am terribly excited about. There is a certain amount of material that is available on learn.wordpress.org at this time, and it is completely free for anyone to use in other contexts, like at the bootcamp that Master WP is running. One of the posts that just came out from my colleague, Jonathan Bossinger. Jonathan is sponsored by Automatic to contribute to the training team. Anyone is welcome to contribute. You don't have to be sponsored. Welcome if you are. Jonathan put together a really good, he took the kind of very high level roadmap I had made while I was teaching at the boot camp that I used to explain to my leaders, here's the journey, right? He took that and then broke it down into individual lessons that should be coming out in the next I don't want to make any promises on the time frame of things, but there's a lot of lessons that are suggested there. And I just dropped the link into the chat. But if you go to make.wordpress.org/training, it's like the most recent post as of the airing of this. So it goes through how to make custom post types. And I've been told by employers in the WordPress industry that you've got to know how to make custom post types, both with and without a plugin to help you do that as part of the junior dev skill level type of thing. It goes through a whole lot more than that, but he's got a really good outline of some suggestions. If there's anything missing and you want to see resources for it, or if you're wondering why something is on the list, go leave a comment on that post. This is an opportunity to say the kind of feedback that is needed. But look for some big revision updates on learn.wordpress.org. Of course, I've got a lot of colleagues that are educating over at LinkedIn Learning. That's a great resource if you've got the ability to get that. And a lot of public libraries make that available through lynda.com. So if finance is an objection, then take a look and see if your library is sponsored Lynda or something like it. There are books. There are lots of YouTube videos. With YouTube, you want to look for channels that seem to have a good subscription rate for them, as well as how recent the content is, to know if you're getting something that's like really recent or not. Use caution with YouTube, but yes, use YouTube, because we all do, as Google or any of the other things. It was so good to have you with us. Before we go, we have some more events coming up here at GoDaddy. Next week, we've got a few of them. We will have a hacked website threat report with Sakuri that is happening. Let me grab some links here for the chat area. So we've got Sakuri sharing about security for websites. We also have Chris Badgett from Lifter LMS that will be sharing about building your WordPress-powered website into a learning management system. And I am looking for Maya. You're with me, and if you beat me to this, then that's fantastic too. But I believe, Maya, you've got one coming up. Maya is our GoDaddy Pro EMEAs, so the European region specifically. Let's get to, I'm looking for the link at the moment, GoDaddy Pro EMEA, and you can find the events that Maya is hosting. She's got a few coming up. Well, I'll drop the link in right here, so you can tune in to the ones that are happening in that time zone. If you're in the Americas, it's going to be pretty early, but I know we have a few people in today that I see from India that were joining us, some folks in Mumbai, so this might be more in your time zone. But the more that you network and connect with other people that are building WordPress, the better we all are. Where else can folks find you, Naisha? Where would you like to send them if they want to connect with you more?
You can follow me on Twitter. I am at @the_creator. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. I will have a website up soon, and I will link to it from my Twitter, but you can find me there. If you want to private message me, if you want to talk, if you want to ever Zoom or have a coffee chat, we can do that. You can subscribe to Master WP, our WordPress newsletter. We publish every Wednesday, and you can see me yell or laugh or talk or scream about things going on in the community. And yeah, those are the best ways to reach me.
That's fantastic. I love it. And then for those of you that are with us, Ken also shared a link. If you have more questions that you would like to ask and you didn't get to it today, you could also jump over to our forums and join us there. Thank you again so much for being with us. Thank you, everybody that came to learn about how to develop other WordPress developers. Thanks again. And
thank you.
Stop recording.